Hello, my dear friends. The New York lottery system about 30 years ago coined a phrase to encourage people to buy lottery tickets. Hey, you never know. Which is to say, the person buys a ticket, he or she thinks the likelihood of winning the lottery is more remote than being struck by lightning 5 or 6 times. But they buy it anyway because, they'll give it a chance. And then in the end, wow, their life is transformed. All the people that win, there are people that win. Those people, their life is transformed. They go from paupers to riches overnight. So the lottery system is saying to each one of us, hey, you never know. Maybe you'll be the one to become a millionaire. I was thinking about this phrase. I saw a terrific story this week, and I think it ties into the Parashas as well. The Rabbi Pincus in the Sefer on Chumash writes the following. He says, there was Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael received in the mail an invitation to a wedding, and the man enclosed with the invitation is a note that says, please come to the wedding of my daughter. It would be our honor to have you at the wedding. And he enclosed airfare for the Rosh Yeshiva to be able to make the trip. And Rosh Yeshiva is trying to think, who is this person? He didn't recognize the name at first that's inviting me to his daughter's wedding, and he's willing to pay for me to come. Then he remembered that years ago he had learned with this person in Yeshiva Panovich, but he didn't really have that much to do. So he was with the person. It wasn't like he was a close friend. So he's just surprised. Why is he inviting me to his wedding? So he called him up. And he says, why did you invite me to your daughter's wedding? You sent me airfare. So he says, you don't know how you changed my life. Because I came to Panovich from Switzerland. I was a young boy, and I guess he was away from home and he was lonely, and he didn't integrate well into the yeshiva. He didn't have friends, and he was broken, and his learning wasn't going well. And he decided, that's it. I don't belong here. And he called up his parents and he told them, I need to come back home to Switzerland. And the parents agreed, and he was about to go buy a ticket, an airfare ticket, an airplane ticket to go home. And this man, who was now the Rosh Yeshiva, he said, you passed by and you saw that my collar was messy, and you went and you fixed my collar, and that made a revolution inside my soul, because I thought, nobody knows me, nobody cares about me here. I'm all by myself. And then just with that small, simple gesture, you showed that there's somebody that cares about me. And I decided, you know what? If that's the case, I'm going to stay. So this man stayed in Panovich, and he for years, and he became a tremendous Talmid Chacham. And he went back to Switzerland to teach Torah. So he says, I feel tremendously indebted to you. That's why I'm inviting you to the wedding and sending you a ticket. So you never know how a small gesture that the Rosh Yeshiva, when he fixed his collar, did he have the slightest idea that it would change this person's life? But the point is, you never know. You never know how you say good morning to somebody. Person feels lonely, they're going through a difficult time, having a hard time. You say good morning, you give them a pat on the back, and you say, it's nice to see you. You give the person a boost. You never know what the impact that will be on a person's life. And there's countless you never know stories of people that do things that they small gestures, little things, but you never know how something like that could transform a person's life. The reverse is true as well. You never know how something small could lead to terrible consequences. And there's an example of that in this week's Parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu invites Yisro to stay with the Jewish people, not to go back to Midian. And he says to Yisro, Nosim anachnu, we are traveling to the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised to give to us, to Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi says, Nosim anachnu miyad ad shlosh yamim, within the next 3 days, because anu nichnas la'aretz. God's plan was, this was right after Kabbalah Torah, God's plan was that within 3 days, they would enter Eretz Yisrael. So what happened? They didn't enter Eretz Yisrael within 3 days. So Rashi says, El shachatu b'misonanim. They sinned with the misonanim. The misonanim were the complainers. They complained about the traveling. They traveled for 3 days, and they're always traveling. So much traveling. All we do is travel in the desert. And because of that, they didn't enter Eretz Yisrael. What does Rashi mean? How did the misonanim stop the Jewish people from entering Eretz Yisrael. So what Rashi means is, I believe, is that the Misonim triggered a whole series of events. First, the Misonim, they complained about the traveling into Eretz Yisrael. And the Chumash says that as a result, there was a plague, and many people died. And the name of the place was called Tavera, because Bam Eish Hashem, because the fire of Hashem burned in that location. We don't know how many, but there were scores of people that died because God was upset that people were complainers. Then they complained about the man, and that was triggered by the people that the people were kvetchy. They had lost patience. It was a time of discontent, and one thing led to the next. So the misonim, that led to the people who complained about the man. And what were they complaining about the man? The man tastes like everything, but it didn't taste like cucumbers and melons and onions and garlic. Rashi says because pregnant women can't eat those foods, it's harmful for them. So it upsets their stomach. So they had man was the most fantastic food, but they were kvetches. And therefore they said they're tired of man. All we eat all day is man. If man was taste like whatever you wanted it to taste like. But they wanted something, they wanted variety, they wanted something new. So that was an entire episode. And then after the man, the people complained that they want meat. They want to have meat to eat. They're tired of eating man. They want to have meat. And Moshe Rabbeinu throws up his hands in despair and says, we're going to get meat for all these people, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. And God said, you'll see. So the meat came down from the sky, and they miraculously, and they ate meat. So the Chumash says they ate meat for 30 days. And then at the end of the 30 days, God says they can eat meat until it comes out of their noses. And then there was a tremendous plague. And again, thousands of people died. And it was called Kivros Hatava. It was the burial place of lust, because Kavru es Ama Misavim, because they buried the people that were lustful, people that were so important to them to have. So that was all. That was again. It was 30 days of eating meat, and then the people died. And then right after that, Miriam says Lashon Hara Moshe Rabbeinu, and then she's punished with saras, and the people had to spend 7 days in the desert waiting for Miriam to recover. And then comes the Meraglim. And the Meraglim there was not supposed to be Meraglim. But the Meraglim, Rashi explains that the people came to Moshe, the spies, and they said, we want to spy them, we want you to send spies to see what type of land it is. Because it was a period of discontent, and they weren't satisfied, and they were mistrustful. And the Meraglim was 40 days, and then at the end of the 40 days, the Meraglim came back, and they swayed the hearts of the people. And because they swayed the hearts of the people, they rebelled against Hashem. They ended up spending the next 40 years in the desert. So all this whole series of events, from the Misonim, the complainers, to the people that complained about the traveling. Then they complained about the month. Then they complained that they didn't have meat. Then Miriam complained about Moshe Rabbi, Miriam and Aaron. They complained about Moshe. And then the Meraglim, they complained about Eretz Yisrael. It was all triggered by the initial event of the Misonim. And if not for the Misonim, they would have gone into Eretz Yisrael immediately, within 3 days. And because of Misonim, look how much suffering was caused because the people were complainers, and you see, and it was like a magefa, the complaining. It spread like wildfire because they created a mood of negativity and a mood of unhappiness and a mood of discontent. So I think that this is in the first story. I think I like the first story than the second. The first story is so beautiful. This person straightened his chaver's collar, and he changed his life. And here you see the reverse is the people that were Misonim, they changed the course of Jewish history. And when those people came up to Shemayim, and they had to give, after they died, they had to give Din D'Cheshvan, God took them, no doubt, to task. Look what you caused. Look how much suffering. Because you complained that you said it's so hard to travel. You fetched. were kvetchers. And even Moshe Rabbeinu, he said, I can't carry, it's too much for me. He lost patience with the people. I can't handle it because they were complainers. But look what you caused. You caused so much argument nefesh for Moshe Rabbeinu. You infected the Jewish people with this mood of discontent, of always finding fault, and one thing led to another thing, and the end was the Meraglim, and the final result was 40 years of wandering in the desert, and every single one of those people, anybody who was over 20 years old, they all perished in the desert, and they never made it to Eretz Yisrael. All that was triggered by the complaints of the Nisanim. So a person has to think about how much power we have. We think that we're impotent. We think, what difference does it make what I say? It's not true. When everybody has an ability to influence others, and sometimes you could influence in a positive way, and you could create optimism within a community. You could create an environment where people only see the good, where people are welcoming, where people are in a great mood. Or you could trigger with a negative mood, where a person's melancholy, a person's depressed, a person's kvetchy. Oh, this is no good, that's no good. I don't like this shul, I don't like this city, I don't like this yeshiva. That is poison, and it transforms the community. And even though it starts out with just a little, it's like a little bacteria that they could infect the person, and it could spread and grow and be devastating, create havoc. That's how a small statement, a small complaint could have terrible consequences. And a nice word to somebody, just saying hello, saying it's nice to see you. Boy, I'm so happy to see you. I haven't seen you for a week. You could put a person that, there's so many people who are going through difficult times in their lives, but we don't even know about it. They walk around, they keep it inside. But they're things that are hard. They can have social problems, they have marriage problems, financial problems. And you say a good word to somebody, gives them encouragement. It could change their whole day or beyond. So I think, hey, you never know. It's a good phrase to remember as we go through life. We always think to ourselves, hey, you never know. Maybe this time that I say good morning to somebody, hey, you never know. Maybe that's going to change that person's life. Or maybe this time that I see the person and I whisk by and I'm busy and I don't even have time to say hello, and you hurt the person's feelings. Hey, you never know what the impact is. And that's something that I think we should be cognizant all the time, that our actions, even our small actions, trivial things, make an enormous difference. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful Shabbos.